They told him the mission was simple. 48 hours. Extract one asset. No casualties. Captain Ryan, Viper Castellano, had heard that lie before. In his 12 years with Delta Force, he'd learned that simple missions didn't exist. Not in Kandahar. Not when the asset was a CIA analyst who disappeared 3 weeks ago, with intelligence that could topple governments. And definitely not when the last team sent to find her never came back. Viper stood in the briefing room at Bagram Air Base, studying the grainy satellite photo of a compound in the Panjshir Valley. Elena Novak, 32 years old, MIT graduate, turned intelligence officer, missing since August 14th when her convoy was ambushed 30 miles north of Kabul. The official story said she was dead, but 3 days ago, her signal, pinged from a location that shouldn't exist, a compound erased from every map, a place the agency pretended not to know about. She's alive, Colonel Pierce said, his voice flat, and she's got something someone very powerful wants buried. He slid a folder across the table. These are the men who took her. Former Afghan army, now working private security, but the money trail leads somewhere unexpected, somewhere that should concern every person in this room. Viper opened the folder. His jaw tightened. The mercenaries weren't just ex-military. They were trained by American contractors, equipped with U.S. weapons, funded through accounts traced to a Pentagon black budget program that officially didn't exist. This wasn't a rescue mission. This was damage control, and someone inside wanted to make sure Elena Novak never made it home. Who knows about this? Viper asked, his eyes still locked on the documents. Pierce hesitated, just enough for Viper to notice. Need to know basis. Your team, me, and one handler at Langley. That's it. Viper had survived 12 years in special operations by trusting his instincts. Right now, every instinct screamed that something was wrong, but Elena Novak was out there, alone, possibly tortured, definitely running out of time. And Viper had never left anyone behind. He wasn't about to start now. 6 hours later, Viper and his 4-man team flew into the Panjshir Valley under cover of darkness. Sergeant Tyson Brick Cooper handled demolitions. Corporal Jake Static Morrison was their communications specialist. Staff Sergeant Jade Phantom Hayes, their sniper, could drop a target at 1,500 meters in a sandstorm. And Lieutenant Connor Doc Sullivan, the team medic, had saved more lives in combat than most doctors saw in a lifetime. They were the best. They'd operated in 17 countries across 4 continents. They'd never failed a mission. But as the Black Hawk descended into the valley, as Viper watched the compound materialize through his night vision goggles, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Fear, not of the enemy, not of death, but of what they might find when they got inside. The compound sat isolated on a hillside, surrounded by terraced farmland that had been abandoned years ago. 3 buildings, stone walls, guard towers at each corner. Through thermal imaging, Viper counted 8 hostiles, all armed, all moving in coordinated patrol patterns that suggested professional military training. Phantom, you got eyes on the target? Viper whispered into his comms. Negative. Jade replied from her position 300 meters away. No heat signatures matching the female. Wait, there's a structure underground. Some kind of cellar or bunker. Can't get thermal penetration. Static. What about that signal? Jake checked his equipment. Still pinging from the eastern building. Ground level. But Viper, it's stationary. Too stationary. Like it's been placed, not carried. A trap. Of course it was a trap. But traps meant someone was still watching. Someone who cared enough about Elena Novak to use her as bait. We go in quiet, Viper ordered. Brick Doc, take the west side. Static, you're with me. Phantom, anyone comes out that door before we give the signal, drop them. Questions, silence. They'd done this 100 times before. The insertion went flawlessly. Viper and Jake moved like shadows, neutralizing 2 guards without a sound. Brick and Doc cleared the western perimeter. Within 8 minutes, they'd breached the eastern building. Empty, just a burner phone sitting on a table. Elena Novak's emergency beacon taped to its back. Transmitting on a loop. Viper, we've got a problem. Doc's voice crackled. Western building. You need to see this. They regrouped at the entrance. Inside, The building had been converted into a makeshift prison. 3 cells, 2 were empty, the third contained a woman, unconscious, chained to a metal frame, Elena Novak, but something was wrong. Doc checked her vitals, pulse is weak, she's been drugged, heavily. And Viper, he pointed to fresh injection marks on her arms. Someone's been keeping her sedated for weeks. Why? Jake asked. If they wanted her dead, why not just? The explosion answered his question. The western building erupted in a fireball that lit up the valley like daylight. Brick and Jake were thrown backward by the blast wave. Alarms shrieked, lights flooded the compound, and from every direction, Viper heard the sound of engines, vehicles, lots of them. Ambush. Jade's voice cut through the chaos. We've got trucks incoming from 3 directions. At least 30 hostiles. Viper, this whole thing was a setup. They'd been compromised. Someone had given them up. Someone knew they were coming. Viper made a split-second decision. Brick breached that wall. We're going out the hard way. Static contact base. Tell them we need immediate evac. Phantom bias time. Jade's rifle sang its deadly song. 1 shot, 2, 3, each one dropping a hostile before they could enter the compound. But there were too many, and they were closing fast. Brick placed charges on the northern wall. Fire in the hole. The explosion blew a 6-foot gap in the stone. Viper lifted Elena's unconscious body over his shoulder. Move, move, move. They poured through the breach, just as gunfire erupted behind them. Bullets chewed through the stone where they'd been standing seconds before. The team returned fire, falling back in coordinated bounds. 50 meters, 100, 200. Static, where's that evac? Viper shouted over the gunfire. Jake's face went pale. Viper, base isn't responding. I'm getting nothing but static on all channels. It's like someone's jamming us. No, wait, his voice dropped. It's not jamming. Someone cut our frequency from inside our own network. The words hit Viper like a punch to the gut. Inside job. They weren't just fighting mercenaries. They were fighting their own people. Alternate extraction point. Viper commanded, his mind racing through contingencies. 2 clicks north. There's a plateau. Brick, you still got charges? 3 left. Good. We're gonna need them. They moved through the darkness. Elena's dead weight slowing them down but never stopping them. Behind them, the enemy pursued with organized precision. These weren't random fighters. They moved like operators. American operators. Jade took up rear guard, her rifle barking every 30 seconds, each shot perfectly timed to keep the pursuers at bay. Viper, they're not trying to kill us. They're hurting us. Northeast vector, away from populated areas, away from witnesses. Viper realized, whoever wanted them dead wanted it clean. No collateral damage, no uncomfortable questions. They reached a narrow canyon, walls rising 50 feet on either side. A perfect kill zone. Viper knew it, the enemy knew it, but it was also the only route to the extraction plateau. Brick, set charges at the entrance. 30-second delay. We go through, they follow. You bring the whole canyon down on them. That's gonna trap us on the other side. Brick warned. I know. They had no choice. They ran through the canyon, legs burning, lungs screaming. Behind them, the pursuing vehicles entered the narrow passage. Brick triggered the charges. The explosion was catastrophic. Tons of rock collapsed, sealing the canyon completely. Dust and debris billowed outward like a sandstorm. For a moment, there was silence. Then Viper's radio crackled. A new voice. American. Cold. Familiar. Captain Castellano. This is General Marcus Blackwood. I'm disappointed. I expected better from Delta's finest. Viper's blood ran cold. Blackwood, 3-star general, Pentagon insider, the man who'd personally approved this mission. You sold us out, Viper said flatly. I protected a program worth billions. Blackwood replied. Ms. Novak discovered something she shouldn't have. Financial records, weapon shipments to insurgent groups, a very profitable enterprise that benefits certain people in very high places. She had to disappear, and when she proved harder to kill than expected, well, we needed a cleaner solution. You sent us here to die. I sent you here to become martyrs. Delta Force team, killed attempting a heroic rescue. It's tragic, it's honorable, and it buries the truth along with your bodies. My people are moving into position now. 20 operators, former SEALs and Rangers. You're outnumbered and outgunned. There's no evac coming, no backup, no way out. Viper looked at his team, Brick, checking his remaining charges. Jake, desperately trying to find any working frequency. Doc, stabilizing Elena's vitals with shaking hands. Jade, scanning the ridgeline with her rifle, jaws set in grim determination. They trusted the system, followed orders, believed in the mission, and now the system was going to kill them for it. So what do we do? Doc asked quietly. Viper looked down at Elena Novak. Even unconscious, sedated, broken, she'd fought to survive for weeks because she knew the truth mattered, because she believed someone would come for her, and they had. We finished the mission, Viper said. Static, that laptop in your pack.
Can you access Elena's encrypted files if we get her conscious? If she remembers her passwords, yeah. Doc, wake her up. Whatever it takes. Viper, she's in bad shape. Wake her up. Brick, I need you to set your last 2 charges here and here. He pointed to 2 positions on the plateau. When Blackwood's team comes, we need them grouped tight. That's a kill box, Brick said slowly. We'd be in the center of it. I know. Phantom, you're our ace. Once they're committed, once they think they've got us pinned, that's when you move. Flank right. Take the high ground. You'll have maybe 30 seconds before they reposition. Jade nodded. 30 seconds. 12 targets. I've done worse. The other 8 are mine, Viper said. His team stared at him. They understood what he was saying, what he was asking. This is insane, Jake whispered. Yeah, Viper agreed. But it's the only play we've got. We survive the next 20 minutes. We get Elena's files uploaded to every news organization on the planet. We expose Blackwood. We expose the program. We make damn sure our deaths meant something. Doc injected Elena with a stimulant. Her eyes fluttered open, confused, terrified, then focusing on Viper's face. Who are you? Someone who's going to get you home. But I need your help. The files. The evidence. Can you access them? Understanding flickered across her face. You came for me. After all this time, you actually came. Always. Now those files, I memorized them, she said, her voice growing stronger. Every transaction, every name, every shipment. I knew they'd take my electronics, so I memorized everything. 300 pages. Every word. Viper smiled. You're tougher than half my team. Former Marine, she replied. Before I went CIA. Of course she was. Jake set up the laptop. I've got a satellite connection. Narrow window. Maybe 5 minutes before they locate the signal. Then we better talk fast, Elena said. For 4 minutes, she spoke. Names, dates, bank account numbers, weapons shipments to Taliban commanders, bribes to Afghan officials, American soldiers killed by weapons that Blackwood's program had sold to the enemy, billions of dollars, dozens of generals and contractors and politicians, a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of government. Upload complete, Jake said. It's gone to 15 news organizations. Washington Post, New York Times, Guardian, Reuters, all of them. Cloud backup to 6 different servers. Viper, we did it. The truth is out. Good, Viper said. Now comes the hard part. They heard them before they saw them. 20 operators moving in coordinated teams. Thermal optics scanning. Suppressed weapons ready. They move like ghosts. Professional, lethal, and utterly confident. Last chance, Castellano. Blackwood's voice crackled over the radio. Surrender. I'll make it quick, painless. Your team doesn't have to suffer. Viper keyed his mic. General Blackwood, this is Captain Castellano. I've got one thing to say to you. What's that? You should have sent more men. Brick triggered the charges. The plateau erupted. The lead teams were caught completely exposed, the blasts shredding their formations. But these were elite operators. They recovered fast, returning fire, moving to cover, adapting. Viper and his team fought like demons. Every bullet counted. Every second mattered. Doc dragged Elena behind a boulder, shielding her body with his own. Jake fired controlled bursts, making every round count. Brick threw his last grenade, taking out 3 hostiles who'd gotten too close. And then Jade made her move. While the enemy focused on the team's position, she'd circled right, climbing to a rocky outcropping that gave her perfect enfilade fire. Her rifle became an instrument of precision death. 1 shot, 1 kill. 12 seconds, 8 hostiles down. The remaining operators panicked, tried to reposition, exposed themselves. Viper didn't waste the opportunity. When the shooting finally stopped, when the plateau fell silent except for the ringing in their ears, 7 hostiles were dead. The rest had retreated, broken, their confidence shattered. Viper, Jake said, his voice shaking, I'm getting incoming traffic. News alerts. The files went viral. Every major outlet is running the story. Pentagon in chaos. FBI mobilizing. Congress demanding investigations. Blackwood's finished. They're all finished. Viper looked at his team. Brick, bleeding from a shoulder wound but grinning. Jake, covered in dust and cordite but alive. Doc, checking Elena's vitals with professional focus. Jade, descending from her perch, rifle still ready. They'd survived, against impossible odds, against their own people, against a conspiracy that wanted them erased. Static, Viper said. Call in our position. Real channels this time. I want an extraction team. First want Marine air support. I want half the damn military out here. Let's see Blackwood try to disappear us now. Within 30 minutes, the valley filled with helicopters, Marines, FBI, even CNN had a news crew filming from a distance. Blackwood's operators melted away into the mountains, knowing they'd lost, knowing the whole world was watching now. As they loaded onto the extraction helicopter, Elena Novak grabbed Viper's arm. You risked everything, your whole team, for someone you'd never met. Why? Viper looked at her, at his team, at the mountains of Afghanistan where so many had died, so many had been betrayed, so many had given everything for a cause they believed in. Because that's what we do, he said simply. We leave no one behind, not our people, not the truth, not our honor. Someone has to stand between the innocent and the darkness. Someone has to be willing to pay the cost. That's why we wear the uniform. That's why we take the oath. Not for politicians, not for generals, for each other, for the mission, for what's right. 2 weeks later, Viper stood in a congressional hearing room. General Blackwood sat at the defendant's table, his uniform stripped of rank, his face pale. 17 officials had been arrested. 43 others were under investigation. The program was exposed, the money trail revealed, the conspiracy dismantled. Elena testified for 6 hours. Every detail, every name, every crime. Her voice never wavered. When it was over, when justice, real justice, had finally begun, Viper's team met at a bar in Arlington. They didn't talk about the mission, didn't relive the firefight, just sat together, brothers and sisters in arms who'd gone through hell and come out the other side. You know what I learned? Brick said, raising his beer. What's that? Viper asked. That the mission isn't about following orders. It's about doing what's right, even when it costs everything, even when your own people turn against you. The uniform doesn't make you a soldier. The rank doesn't make you a leader. It's the choice, the decision to stand up when everyone else sits down, to fight when it's easier to run, to protect the truth even when lies would be safer. They drank to that, to honor over orders, to conscience over convenience, to the idea that some things mattered more than survival, that some battles had to be fought, no matter the cost. 3 months later, Viper received a Medal of Honor. So did every member of his team. Elena Novak got a book deal and a position training the next generation of analysts to recognize corruption and blow the whistle. Blackwood got 25 years in federal prison. But the real victory wasn't the medals or the prison sentences or the headlines. It was the message that even in the darkest corners of the military-industrial complex, even when power protects itself, even when the system fails, there are still soldiers who remember what the oath means, who understand that duty isn't blind obedience, it's moral courage, the willingness to risk everything for what's right. Viper learned something in that valley in Afghanistan, something every warrior must eventually face. The hardest enemy isn't the one across the battlefield. It's the one who asks you to compromise your principles, to look the other way, to follow orders that violate everything you believe in. And the greatest victory isn't defeating that enemy. It's refusing to become them. So here's what I want you to remember. When you face that moment, and you will face it, when someone asks you to betray your values, to stay silent about injustice, to prioritize convenience over conscience, be like Viper. Be like that team who stood in a valley surrounded by superior forces and said, "Not today." Be the person who risks everything for the truth. Because at the end of your life, the medals don't matter. The promotions don't matter. The comfort and safety don't matter. What matters is whether you stood for something, whether you protected those who couldn't protect themselves, whether you had the courage to do what was right when it would have been easier to do what was safe. That's not just a military lesson. That's a life lesson. Stand for truth. Protect the innocent. Leave no one behind, even when it costs everything, especially when it costs everything. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me about a time you had to choose between what was easy and what was right, and subscribe, because every week I bring you true stories of courage, sacrifice, and the warriors who changed the world. Remember, heroes aren't born. They're forged in the moments when they refuse to back down. Stay strong, stay honorable, and never, ever leave your people behind.